with an update on Sasha Banks' WWE status and the Vince McMahon scandal. This is Wrestling Hub. My name is John, and you're watching the Wrestling Report for June 16. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official and follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. With Vince McMahon being investigated for allegedly paying hush money to a former employee over an alleged affair, Brandon Thurston pointed out that over 2 million shares changed hands yesterday, mere hours before the story broke. WWE's code of conduct on insider trading was linked as it reads, "The term insider trading refers to the practice of trading in securities while in possession of material, non-public information, a practice which is prohibited under federal law. Any WWE personnel trading while in possession of material information, which he or she has reason to believe is not publicly available, is acting contrary to company policy. They may be held liable for insider trading. Directly or indirectly tipping this information to another person who trades is also a violation of this policy. Information will be deemed material if it would be likely to influence a reasonable investor's decision to buy, sell, or hold securities. Any information about the advances, setbacks, or overall business plan of WWE or its business partners should be considered material. Non-public information includes any information that has not been made available to the public through a press release or a filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission. WWE personnel with information about WWE or its business partners should consider the information non-public until the second full trading day following the widespread disclosure of that information." Speaking about the Vince McMahon scandal, it was pointed out on Wrestling Observer Radio that Netflix may scrap plans for a biography on the WWE chairman. The other thing too is the Netflix show that they've been working on. That changes a lot of the dynamic of that show too, because the whole show is about portraying Vince McMahon as this babyface and Phil Mushnick and others as these giant heels out to get him for all the stuff in the 90s. It was always a weird one to me, the trial in the Justice Department and everything like that. With this hanging over Vince's head, I don't know that Netflix wants to put a show like that on the air. It's kind of, even if Vince doesn't have to leave with the sexual allegations and everything against him, that becomes a very tricky little thing there. It was even said that this situation could get worse. This is also not a Harvey Weinstein, although it could end up being, but it's not because, Harvey Weinstein, who was one of the biggest names who got done in by this, the idea was that he used his power to end careers and things like that, which there's, again, if it comes out and that there's people who have had career changes or something like that, that's an issue. Another issue is when the stuff happens, if there's a lot of instances, there could be other people coming out publicly on this. That's what happens. The media starts investigating, although they may not because it is wrestling. The Observer would also note what might happen to Vince McMahon. I've talked to a lot of people who, out from this area, in big business, and they looked at this and said he's done, because you would be done for a lot less, and there are people who are in charge of much bigger companies here who had much less than this, and they were done. Still, it was said McMahon could end up keeping his job. Major CEOs, far more powerful than Vince McMahon, have been brought down for less than this. But the defense is, and I know people in the company who do believe Vince will survive this. I'm not so sure about John Laurinaitis, but do believe Vince will survive this, with the idea that as long as there's no company funds used to pay this off, it's just, that would be okay. Dave Meltzer would then discuss the McMahon scandal getting leaked, as he said, "There's the big question of who on the board of directors leaked it, whatever. I mean, it's a question, but I think it was probably somebody on the board. It may have been the person who leaked it to the board and then leaking it, and the Wall Street Journal finding out the dates and everything and then being told that from the outside. The fact that the investigation and everything seems to indicate that somebody on the board did leak the news. And so you've got 12 people there. Obviously Vince didn't, so you've got 11 people there that you can look at and whatever. It could be one of those, but we don't have that answer, obviously." Speaking about the possibility of a crossover between WWE and AEW, Raw play-by-play commentator Jimmy Smith said on this podcast, if so-and-so from AEW, and I don't know because I don't have time to watch AEW, but if somebody came up from AEW and it was WWE versus AEW, what you're implying is that they are on the same level. This champion from AEW, whoever it is, I know CM Punk is the champion right now, so let's say CM Punk gets in there against Roman Reigns. What you're saying is this guy is on Roman Reigns' level, and the WWE will never, ever do that, and why should they? UFC is never going to do that with anybody at any other level. Will we see more of it? Yes. Is WWE and UFC worried about it? No, they are not. Despite AEW stars continuing to mention the former IWGP champion, it was pointed out on Wrestling Observer Radio that Okada is not expected to appear at the Forbidden Door event. Adam Cole mentioned no Okada on the show, and I do not have that clarified, but Okada's wife is scheduled to give birth right around that time, so that may be the reason that Okada is not on the show. I don't think he is, because I can't imagine them saying Okada's not on the show and it not being true. We'll probably also know that in the next day or two. With Tanahashi set to face Jon Moxley after CM Punk was pulled from the original match due to injury, Chris Jericho revealed on TSN that he wanted that match. To be honest with you, when Punk got hurt, I thought maybe I would get the call to work with Tanahashi. Obviously, Mox is a great choice as well, but that to me is the status of what I should be doing in a New Japan situation. Don't forget, we've got Blood and Guts 3 days later. If I do something at Forbidden Door, it has to be something that leads to Blood and Guts. It has to be the next step in the story. So where does that fit in? Well, we have to use our heads and figure something out to make it fit in somewhere. And you can't really have a pay-per-view without Chris Jericho on the show, or Eddie Kingston on the show, or Bryan Danielson on the show at this point, especially with Punk and other guys out. I'm sure I'll be involved in some capacity, but it's going to have to be more of something that fits together with what's going on at Blood and Guts, which probably means not so much a singles match and more of a faction-based match with the Jericho Appreciation Society at the crux of it versus the BCC or whatever New Japan guys we decide could fit in there. Recalling the Anything Goes match between Darby Allin and Jeff Hardy, Jake Roberts said on the Snake Pit podcast that Allin expected to be in the hospital after the latter's spot in the bout. I seen him 3 days after that, and he's seen me coming, and he's like, oh boy, he's already ducking me because he knows I'm gonna chew his ass. What are you doing? I said, tell me what you were thinking before that. He goes, Jake, I was starting to go up. When I got up there, I thought, well, I'm here, I'm going to the hospital. I know I'm going to the hospital this time. He said, I was quite shocked that I didn't. I hit and I started moving, and it all still worked, and I thought it wasn't that bad. I said, that's the worst thing you could have told me. With WWE not getting into specifics on Randy Orton's injury, it was reported that this could be worse than anticipated. Fightful has learned that Orton has been dealing with a back injury for quite some time, to the point he actually had work done to improve his condition before the tag team title unification match, though we aren't sure of the extent of the work that was done. We're told that things have gotten progressively worse, and WWE fears that Orton will be forced to undergo surgery. WWE sources that we spoke to said that if that happens, Orton would likely be out of action the rest of 2022. Thus far, the exact injury is unknown. After Thunder Rosa was called out for sandbagging Marina Shafir during a match on Dynamite last week, Shafir and Britt Baker would like that tweet accusing her. Now Rosa has responded with a picture writing, "Today we take responsibility and work on being better, because at the end of the day we break bread. Two mothers navigating a world in where we both never-ending learners." Discussing the match on his podcast, Jim Cornette said the issues with this bout lied with the performance of Shafir, not Rosa. Thunder Rosa versus Marina Shafir. Is she not the one married to Roderick Strong? Do they never speak? You would have to have thought that. Roddy is one of the best, most polished talents. He can do anything. I can't believe he's not seeing his wife as challenged at best description in this industry, and certainly he's given her some one-on-one instruction, and then the case becomes, if you've not only been through a wrestling training school of some description, but you're living with Roderick Strong and have the ability for him to show you what to do, and you're still not any better than this, should you give up? That is the question. When asked specifically about the Boston Crab spot and who was responsible, Jim said, all of this this was Marina. And because even if you're trying to feed somebody your legs or arms so they can get a hold on you, when you don't know what they're doing and you don't really know which way to turn, and then they drop what they got of yours, they drop it because you turned the wrong way, because you don't know where you're going. I mean, she messed up a snapmare, but as Thunder Rosa tried to take it, Marina just walked to the middle of the ring with her, and I don't know. Jim Ross said this was possibly a clash of styles here. I've seen smoother shoots, and she almost killed Rosa with a snap suplex. Sonny Kiss could be seen on Dynamite last night as a part of a commercial celebrating Pride Month. She has not wrestled on TV in a long time. Former AEW star Joey Janela called out the company, writing, "I heard Sonny Kiss was finally on TV tonight. Oh yeah, it's June." And it was a Pride commercial, of course. Hasn't been in a match on TV in like 2 years. Cut the BS. With reports circulating that Sasha Banks could have been released by WWE, Andrew Zarian of the Mat Men podcast said, "I cannot confirm she's been released, but I did hear late last week that her attorneys were working on getting this done." If this report turns out to be true, then we should get an official statement from WWE regarding this release soon. After reports of her release came out, many fans reacted online. Sasha Banks is a treasure, and she should be treated as such. True, I didn't like her, still don't, but if she goes to AEW, I'm going to be super happy for her. Sasha Banks got eye surgery so she can see the downfall of Vince McMahon with her own eyes. She would be a huge upgrade to the AEW roster and their biggest free agent signing by far. Everyone's saying she's going to go to AEW. She's basically established in Hollywood because of Mandalorian, so she's beyond wrestling at this point. And this was your pro wrestling news update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.